for tuning in to the Prolific One podcast. Information about each presenter and their organization can be viewed on the prolificone.com insight page. This session will begin now.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Prolific One podcast. I'm Sara Madrid from Prolific One, and joining me today for this session, we have Senior Level Ticketing Executive Jacque Holowaty. Jacque is the former Vice President of Ticketing and Client Experience for Spectra Venue Management, and she has over 15 years of experience in ticketing and live events. I personally had the pleasure of working with Jacque on our partnership with Spectra for several years, and I'm so excited for the insight that she's going to share with us. So Jacque, I know we are in an ever-changing time for not only live entertainment, but really everything in our daily lives. So thank you for taking the time. And of course, I hope you and your family are staying healthy.
Yes, thanks, Sarah. I'm very, very excited. And thank you guys for having me. It's definitely one of those times, and I'm going to try to steer clear of using the words we don't want to use after I say it this one time, which is unprecedented. So hopefully, obviously, you and your family and, knowing that, you're a mom as well, you're doing well and staying safe and sane with the kiddos.
Yeah, doing our best over here. So obviously, we're all affected right now. On the venue and ticketing side, we've heard a lot of ideas floating around on how events will operate differently following the pandemic. So let me ask, what positives do you see coming out of all of this?
Honestly, I think at the end of all of this, as we all kind of get a chance to level set, I think really what is going to come out of this is all going to be positive. We don't see it right now, but in times like this, when you have a chance to really sit back, re-look at things from a broad point of view and have the time to actually make change, that's when the innovation really happens, right? It's tough emotionally, mentally, and financially for people, I think, to see that side, that there's going to be positives. But ultimately, there's going to be the unique innovation and foresight and things that we should have been doing for so long, but just always had the excuse of we don't have enough time, which again, right now, maybe doesn't feel like a gift for so many people. But we have the chance to rip off the Band-Aid of so many things that was taking way longer than it should have to really do. In simplest terms, it's, online account management, mobile ticketing, all these things that have existed for a really long time, specifically in live entertainments in the ticketing space. But there was always a fear of what happens if I go mobile? Am I going to alienate a group of my patrons, my fans? Are they going to feel this is too much for them? And what we've seen through this is that the technology exists to be all mobile. The technology exists to move online, to virtual, to all of these things. So there's not really an excuse anymore to say, we're going to alienate a group of people. We have the resources, we have the technology that exists. Contactless ticketing, which has been somewhat of a trend, we're now in a society that contact in general with human to humans is not something that is kind of moving forward. Hopefully all that'll move away and we'll shift back to, being able to be around people in a much closer proximity. But even in that case, keeping things more sterile and more sanitized with contactless ticketing and again, online account management, there's no need for people to have to continue to walk to a box office to do a cash transaction for a hard ticket. I'm not saying it's going to go away completely by the time that this ends, but I think there hopefully will be a shift that people are more comfortable with the online process, that, venues that have been a little worried about shifting, they have the time now to make sure that process is seamless for their fans, that they're there from the support system, and that we're really creating, even though it's a technology kind of forward, a virtual experience, you can't lose that humanization and that touch point with your customer experience. So it's creating that online process that still feels personable to your fans, to your venue, to your brand. And ultimately, customer experience is going to be what everyone is going to be talking about as we move forward. People are going to want to come back to live events. They're going to want to do it. It's going to be a need for it. And we need to make sure that the experience we're providing to these guests is beyond what they've ever had expectations for. Venues around the world are being built for this next level of experience, but now the venues that have been around for a while have to say, what technology can I leverage? what are unique things that I can create to have a better customer experience? 5G technology exists, artificial intelligence exists, VR technology, all of these things are out there. So how can we leverage them and really make sure when we're doing live events again, that people are coming at this and we've updated to 2020, right? We're not living in what used to be live events, but we're living in this new amazing era where innovation and creativity and all these ideas have really kind of superseded, and we're able to push forward in a way that we might have been hesitant to push forward in the past.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely true. I know we've had a lot of discussions about technology on our side as well. And this is kind of the opportunity to really create that ease of transaction, from buying the ticket to going to the event to post-event and everything like that. Well, I think most of us are tired of the COVID discussion by now. So let's shift a little bit and discuss the venue side of the business, which is your strong suit for sure. The average venue is hosting multiple events on a weekly basis, and you've got all different content types, right? You've got family shows, you've got concerts, you've got sporting events. What's that like from an announcement strategy and an on-sale perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, it all comes down to communication, right? The venue has to be communicating effectively with the promoter of each tour or the agent or the artist, whoever they're dealing with that. But the venue also needs to be communicating internally. So marketing, box office, event managers, operations, GMs are all on the same page as to what is best for the fans, that we can leverage the most out of all the fans coming, that we are announcing the right shows to the right people, and that we're doing it in the best interest of the promoters. So we're selling the most tickets, that we're not limiting them by an oversaturation of any sort of content type or just, events in general. I mean, if the most people in the venue, if you've been in this industry for a long time, intuition does speak a lot. When you're doing this day in and day out, you have that gut feeling of this doesn't seem like it's going to make sense. And while that's a great place to start, venues need to back that up with the data, right? So when you've had these shows before, what was the past purchase history? What types of people were coming? You have the ability now to provide that promoter, whoever it is, with that data and give them a reason to hold an on sale and wait a few days if you have it competing with another on sale that might limit its tickets. Even just a few hours, we've seen can have a drastic difference in how many people are purchasing those tickets kind of up front. So really, you don't want a show to get ever lost in the shuffle of all the other shows. And obviously you're going to have your A acts, your acts that aren't going to get lost. They're national, they get the media exposure. And then for venues to really operate successfully, you have all those in-between acts that are the extreme importance of keeping that alive. And that includes tenant teams and all those games, sporting events that are, and, local wrestling and graduations and all these other things that exist within, the major shows that other people would think about. So if venues are communicating effectively, if departments are communicating effectively, and you're really creating that strategy with ultimately a bit of the gut instinct, but a lot with the data that we have, years and years of history of how shows have sold, you can put together a fantastic announcement strategy that every show is going to get the right exposure to the right people, and you can really make sure you're maximizing that initial push of on-sale revenue.
I think that's so true, right? Like the biggest goal is to avoid that oversaturation and make sure that you're selling through those tickets and getting people in ultimately. So what happens, well, that's all good. What about when those sales goals or your expectations of how it's going to go fall short? What other marketing channels do you tap into, and sort of where do you take the situation from there?
Well, I mean, in the reality of this business, sales goals probably fall short more often than people would like to admit that they fall short, probably because of an oversaturation. But, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think, you have to build that trust with your audience, right? And, outside of everything going on right now, keeping that trust and keeping that interpersonal relationship with your fans is crucial. And it's crucial to, the marketing strategy behind it. Ultimately, we have fans' data. And the way that technology exists between Google and cookies and search engine optimization and Facebook and Instagram and all these amazing resources that give you the best picture of what an individual likes, leveraging that technology and not just blanket marketing anymore is really the way that you're going to get fans to the right shows that fit for them. And as much as we want every one of our fans to buy a ticket to every single event that exists in our venue, that's not realistic. I mean, I think they say, you know, fans attend maybe 2 concerts a year if you're lucky. It's usually more about 2 every 18 months or so, I guess, is what the average is. So you're not going to get the same family to come to every event that you have, you know, season tickets aside. So really taking and creating those unique and personalized experiences with the technology and with the digital marketing that exists out there, and allowing fans to feel they're not just getting every single show, because now it's going to get lost in their inbox. It's going to get lost in their news feed. If they're not caring about certain types of shows, you want to make sure they're not seeing all that, and you're really focusing their efforts, and you're focusing your efforts on them seeing specifically what makes sense to them. You know, do they have young kids? Are they more into wrestling? Or do they like VIP experiences versus maybe the family 4-pack with hot dogs? So maybe it's a suite rental, or it's a higher end unique experience that you're targeting a certain area of guests based on what you know about them and their past purchases, versus, hey, this is a group that likes to have a birthday party and here's kind of what they want to spend. So here's a unique package we should be offering these people. And, you know, ultimately you need to leverage the way that email marketing has exposed and kind of evolved in kind of the customization and segmenting your audience to the right amount of people and keeping that relationship, building that trust, allowing them to feel that you're talking one-on-one with them and they're not one of 100,000 plus million people in your database, is crucial. That they're going to want to come to more shows because they know that they feel like you know them, like it's a one-on-one relationship and they're just not one person in this large group of everybody.
From your database, do you find that there have been in the past a lot of traditionally, like someone who goes to a Disney on Ice event one year, do you find that there's a lot of return of that customer? Are they coming back and going to different shows? You know, what's sort of the tracking of that?
Certain shows absolutely will have repeat customers, at least for a period of time. Disney on Ice is one of those shows that you really want to target your past purchasers. They have a much higher return rate than say other shows. You know, especially concerts, a lot of times you won't get, certain people will go to the same, even if it's a different tour, the same artist year after year, but not always. A lot of times concerts are that, you know, bucket list. I got to see X artist and I've seen them. Now I'm going to focus on something else. But when you're talking the family shows, the experiences that are different, and allowing people to bring their children or grandparents to come with their grandkids, and creating that kind of the memories, right? The repeat memories, that nostalgia feeling as they grow up. Those are the shows that you tend to see a lot more repeat customers, even if it's a very similar content.
Yeah, it's all very interesting. Just to see, you know, sort of what gets people in and how they come back year after year. So when you and I first spoke in 2015, you really hadn't yet dove into considering the secondary market as part of your strategy and working it into all of this. What for you led to that change?
I mean, I think ultimately what you have to realize in this business is leveraging partnerships is key to success. And, you know, when I first got into ticketing, as you said, over 15 years ago, you know, the idea of secondary market or a ticket broker realistically was, you know, in my mind, new into this world, was somebody in a parking lot selling a bad, fraudulent ticket and impacting and making a negative experience for our fans. So I think it's taken a long time for some people to realize that the secondary marketplace is a legitimate and amazing resource for event exposure, and to allow events into the eyes of so many more fans than an individual venue would ever have the ability to do. And leveraging a partnership to expose that reach gives more and more fans a better insight to all of the content that's out there, including the content at your individual venue or even a competing venue. And it's really out there to say, hey, we want fans to see this because we know if they come to our venue, we know if they attend this event, we can provide them a great time and they're going to want to come back. But if they don't ever see that because, maybe they weren't in our marketing channels before, or they, had never been to our venue, they're new to the area, but maybe they're part of the network of a secondary market from whatever, previous places they've purchased tickets, they now know about something we would have never been able to tell them. So it's more eyeballs on the content. And in reality, if you partner with great people, and if you're leveraging those partnerships to expand your reach, there's really not a harm in that. And I think we've seen a lot of success in just the more eyeballs on an event, the better for everybody.
I would say I hear those concerns a lot when I'm having initial conversations and even follow-up conversations about legitimacy of tickets and the desire to really preserve that positive experience for the fans. So it's been great to work with you and some of the other organizations that we work with that understand you can make the secondary market work for you, that can work into your strategy, and it can really benefit you in the end. So let's shift a little bit. Let's talk about some of the other things that you've been involved in. For those that know you well and have followed you on social media, perhaps you've been a huge advocate on empowering women in the live entertainment industry. Can you talk a little bit about your experience as a woman in the industry? I know it's a very broad question, but just sort of what brought you here and what it's been.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's a great question. It's a very, relevant question in general, I think, in a lot of cases. And, even throughout this kind of whole transition of this life that we're in right now, I mean, I think it's been very obvious that we need a more diverse and inclusive leadership team across all organizations. Obviously, women and any kind of diversity, diversity in general in leadership is crucial to the success of any industry, any organization, any company. And I think for me personally, when you first start out, when you're entry level as a female, you don't necessarily, I didn't personally realize a bias, right? You're entry level, great, everything's good. And as you climb the ladder, you start to realize the bias, unconscious bias, probably more often than, actual bias, but it's still there. And for me, I thought, okay, I've had the ability in a lot of ways to grow my career, become an executive. And it's my job, if I've been able to sit at the table with executives and be a female voice, I felt it an obligation to use that voice to allow more women to sit at that table with me. And for me, that meant more ideas. It meant more people that think differently than me. Just because they're a female doesn't mean they think the same as me. And I think sometimes people get lost in that all women have the same viewpoint, all women think the same. And that's not the case, just the same as not all men think the same. So more women at the table brings more ideas and more insight and a differentiation of opinions and knowledge, and all that makes everything better. So the ability to develop a women's network and allow women to feel that it's okay and you should be proud to be a female. We shouldn't have to hide who we are. We shouldn't have to change ourselves to fit in the standards of this mold of society, but that we need to be genuine. We need to be authentic to ourselves, and being authentic is really what's going to get people to believe in you as a peer and to believe in you as a leader. And I think in the live entertainment industry, it's an exciting time, especially with all this going on. I mean, empathy and empowerment of other people is so important, and it's extremely crucial to be able to come out of this on the other end. And women, more often than not, they are very empathetic, and that's not taking away anything from men. There's phenomenal, male leaders out there, but there are some women that could be doing amazing things and running these companies and changing the game in how they lead. And I think the more opportunity you have in executive roles to create that diversity, the more well-rounded your organization is going to be. And I think any female that's had the opportunity to grow in their career, become an executive, and have that voice, the more of us sitting at that table and allowing more women the opportunity to get that voice next to us, that's what's going to make the change, right? It's not hoping to get there and saying, I made it, doesn't matter for everybody else. We got to open the doors for the rest of everybody.
It's really great to hear that you take that responsibility so seriously, and just the visibility that you have and other female executives in this industry, and the way that they've sort of used their voice to really, like you said, empower others and give opportunities to others and make sure that, women's voices are heard and our perspective is there, which I think we've made a lot of progress in this industry. So someone who's looking to start a career in live events, you talked about entry level, someone who's, recent college graduate, maybe making a transition into this industry. There are obviously several things that can be keys to success and certainly that contributed to your own career growth. What advice do you have for anyone sort of getting into this industry?
Get a lot of sleep before you start is my first advice. But I think overall, the industry is one of those industries that when you get in and you have that passion for it, you don't leave. You'll talk to people that are 10, 20, 30, 40 year, veterans of this industry because it's a large industry, but it's also very small. People know each other and you can network. And it's just this amazing sense of what we do as an industry to bring live sports and entertainment to fans. It's this amazing connection, no matter what company you work for or what you do in the industry. And so really having that passion, that's what's going to drive you and help you succeed. But also, it's learning about it from all angles, right? It's finding and networking with peers. Finding a mentor. If you go to LinkedIn, Twitter, all these different places, it's so easy to find people that have been doing this for a long time that want to help you, that want to give you advice if you ask for it. Sometimes maybe they'll give it if you don't, but that want to be there because the future of our industry is this next generation of college graduates. As technology is evolving, we need people that understand social media more than anybody does. So you've got all these people that all they've known is social media since they've grown up. They're going to be the best at social media as we move forward and understanding that fan-to-fan relationship in a much more digital but personal way. So, really leveraging the knowledge that exists out there and understanding that a lot of these people have been doing this for a lot of time and they can tell you great, great stories. But also, if you don't know if it's what you want or you don't even know in the industry what you want to do, go get a job as an usher at a venue, right? I'm a big fan of being a ticket seller at a venue and understanding that angle of it. There's so many jobs just to get started to figure out all these different components, changeover crew, all these areas that, really give you an insight to what the day-to-day operations are and allow you to build this amazing network. So as you grow your career, you're going to have all those people there ready to help you get to that next level.
And I think it's also important to note that you don't become a senior vice president overnight. That it takes a lot of front work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of events worked and, just time getting your feet wet in the industry.
I specifically started as a part-time ticket seller when I was in college, getting a degree in something that was not sports and entertainment at all. It was actually natural resources. And I started as a part-time ticket seller, hoping to make some money to pay for some things that I needed. And 15 years later, I was, a VP of a pretty large organization. So it does take some time, but I also think it goes to show that anything's possible. It's not going to take you 40 years to get there and that you can start any entry level that you want. And the path to success is really what you make of it.
Yeah. And it's hard work, right? It's hard work overall and really being dedicated and loving what you do.
Absolutely.
So I also wanted to highlight your experience in helping to build a company culture. A lot of this that we've talked about, internal training procedures, and really kind of helping everybody be cohesive and come together. What strategies have you found most useful for communication and maintaining that motivated, well-functioning team?
A lot of it really comes down to listening. And I think when you have a team of people and different individuals across different states and countries and, lengths of their career, it's not a one size fits all. And so when you want a team where you're trying to put out best practices or procedures and policies, it's remembering that just, telling isn't always going to work. So you really have to listen to the feedback. You have to also be transparent as to why you're asking questions that you're asking. And you have to build the trust with your team and your transparency. If people know that when they're giving you information or what they're giving you the information for, and that you've been honest with them from the get-go, if it's, I need this because we're looking to streamline this process of our partnership with a secondary ticketing platform. If they know what it's for, they're more likely to continue to give you that information. And you're really building that culture of inclusivity. You're building that culture of communication and trust, and it just builds a more cohesive team. And so when somebody's down, you've got everybody else there to help them out. And I think that was one of the best parts of, being in the place that I've been in before and being able to lead teams is I don't know everything. And there's people that have been doing ticketing for 40 years. I mean, 15 years sounds like a long time to me, but I've worked with people that have been in this business for 40 years where they were selling tickets to an Elvis tour back in the day. And that's a true story. So
wow,
those people will have amazing insights into the decades of how our industry has changed and what they know from it. And I have to be open and willing to learn from them as much as I hope they're willing to kind of understand as we're shifting into maybe a different sort of strategy. And when you have that trust and that open communication with your team, and it's really what they see as a company culture, it's not, I want to say it's easy to have a cohesive team, but it's much easier when you're willing to kind of say you don't know it all and you need to leverage the experts at those different areas. If it's technology, if it's, season ticketing with tenant teams, everyone's going to have something that they're really good at, and you want to leverage them, you want to support them, and you need to recognize them as the teammates and not take credit personally. I'm only as good as everybody else around me. And, my job as a leader is to make sure if I'm not a leader anymore, that the team that I had is set up to continue moving as if nothing happened. My job as a leader is to not make sure I'm, if I leave, the whole world falls apart because I was so important. I didn't do my job. Your goal ultimately in that culture is to build everyone else so they're all important and that they can continue carrying on whatever it was in their own voice. It doesn't have to be your voice if you're not there, or if they're going to go to a different company. Some of the greatest moments for me is when I see somebody that's worked for me be able to leave and go somewhere else and work for somebody else, and you see them grow in their career. That's exciting. It's not always about keeping the team, I think, within you or under you and always keeping your employees, but it's helping everyone have that opportunity to grow into what their potential is.
I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier. It's really giving everyone the opportunity to shine and to express their voice and what their ideas are, and knowing that, someone else's ideas are only going to contribute to further success, right? They have ideas that we don't, each of us don't necessarily have. So we're nearing the end of our session today. I wanted to wrap things up with something fun. So for you, what's been the coolest or most rewarding moment of your career so far?
The most rewarding moment of my career. It's hard to pick one because there's, so many of them. To me, I might have to give you two options, so I apologize. But I'd say
that's allowed.
First and foremost, there's been some people when I've been in the ticketing world or at a venue running a box office, you would hire somebody as a part-time ticket seller. And I've seen many of them actually grow into regional support roles, overseeing numerous venues in the ticketing space. And I can look back and say they never even knew what this was. So you kind of get to see people that you're so excited about and you saw so much potential in actually go and reach that potential for themselves. That to me is extremely rewarding because I'm so proud of them, and I'm proud that they've kind of grown into who they are as individuals in the industry. So seeing that, I think, is some of the best things that you can ever watch. But also, I think one of my most rewarding pieces of my career was probably starting the women's network at Spectra. I think that was one of those moments where you can talk the talk, but are you going to walk the walk? And it was a huge team of kind of people putting this together and really seeing this women's network launched and seeing how many, youth. I personally always felt it was important, but you never know until you kind of see the involvement of other individuals, how important it actually is to other people. That to me, and seeing how people's lives can actively be changed for the better, and people can think differently in a better and more exciting and inclusive way. That to me feels like it's not immediate change. It's not change for today or this one cool thing happened. It's a long-term change that's going to impact so many people and be so much better for the industry that I love.
That's all really awesome stuff to be really proud of and really, really excited about. So Jacque, thanks again for joining me today. You shared a lot of great insight, and we obviously really appreciate you giving us a peek behind the curtain to what leads to success in ticketing and live entertainment.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I always love to have these conversations, whatever they are. So that's what I'm here for.
This podcast has now concluded. Full recordings of all podcasts are now live on prolific1.com. If you would like to participate in future podcasts, please email info@prolific1.com or contact our business development team. Thank you for listening.